Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to this week's edition of Artist Alchemy. This is the show where we like to look at artists and kind of that magic they create, or they transform, something out of nothing. And, all artists do that. So we're very pleased today to have special guest Curt Schroeder with us. Curt, welcome to Artist Alchemy.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
We're delighted. I know we had a kind of a delay a few months ago, but we got you rescheduled. So great to see you. Curt's one of the co-founders of the acting company, as it's currently known. We're going to talk a lot about the history of that theater and that group and what it means to the community. But just to get things started, so how is your life, in the times of this COVID-19 pandemic, Curt?
Well, it's been affected a bit. We had 3 trips planned this year, which we all had to cancel. Can't go out to dinner, can't go to movies, which we enjoy, but we belong to Peachtree, so and it's open, so we still go out, are able to go out and play golf.
Good.
And we have actually, in our neighbor's yard, every Friday, all the neighbors get together. We socially distance, but then we chat. So we do get to be social a little bit.
When you're a social animal, like I know you are, I know we are, it's a little hard. You can only zoom in so much. It's not quite the same, but it's
not.
So that's great. You're taking care of your mental health as well as your physical health. So let's jump right in. How did it all begin? I mean, you're one of the founders of the acting company, and you were there in the beginning, and we've got some pictures to share. So tell us the story.
Well, this may come as a surprise to people who are familiar with the theater, but anyway, let me go back to the beginning. I was in the musical Carousel, which was presented as a community play musical, but it was at the high school. I played the lead, Billy Bigelow, and trying to do this in a multi-purpose room was, well, it's not a theater. So afterwards, I was thinking we need a theater in the community. And so I put together a committee, and started out there were about 30 some people. And the object was to come up with the money in order to build a theater. Our object was not to become an acting company, a community theater. We weren't planning to put on plays ourselves. But we funded a study. A fellow came from Napa and did it. And he said, yes, your community will support a building, but you need a year-round tenant. In this case, it would be a theater, a community theater. Well, wasn't one, but I tried to put one together in the community. I put out an ad, and all these people came, and they elected officers and so on and so forth. And we gave them some money to actually get things started, and that fell through. So we said, well, I guess we need to do it ourselves. So we started to put on plays. But again, that was never our original intention.
And who was we back then? We was you and
it started out that there were some people at the high school. One of them, like there was a librarian and a secretary and such.
And that's Yuba City High School?
Yeah, at Yuba City High School, yes.
And right across the street, of course. So okay.
Yes. And so someone was the treasurer, someone else was the secretary, and so on and so forth. That started things going. And then a friend of mine and fellow thespian, Pat Hill, and also a mutual friend of ours, Dexter Black, they came on board, and we consider ourselves the founders of it because we're the ones who really carried the whole thing forward.
I can never remember Dexter's name. I always know there's a third, and we know Pat Hill, of course, very well.
Right. And Dexter had a congenital heart condition, so he knew he was going to die young. He actually lived longer than he thought he was going to. And he directed, this is probably an upcoming question of yours, but I'll answer it now. The very first play that we did was You Can't Take It With You, and we did it at Yuba City High School. Dexter directed it. I was the producer, and I think it was right after the show opened, he died.
Oh my gosh. Oh
yes.
Well,
there's a photo of him. You've been in our theater.
I am.
There's a photo of me and Pat, and then Dexter Black.
I knew there were 3 of you. I just couldn't remember Dexter's name. So It's great that you pay him homage and that great memory and that first show. And this was in the Yuba City High School all-purpose room, right?
Yes, which is where we did Carousel.
And I've seen shows there, you know, Bye Bye Birdie and
Mhm.
Fiddler on the Roof. And so, and having grown up in LA doing shows in the all-purpose room, you know, I feel your pain. So
Yeah, well, yes. Well, actually, I think that the people who've directed shows there, they're miracle workers to,
oh,
you know, to do what they do there.
to make it work. Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's amazing. So here's a technical question: how do you spell theater? E-R or R-E?
You know, I knew you were going to ask that, and I should have checked into it. But I know this is ridiculous. I founded the theater back in 1983, and I don't know. One of the photos I sent you has the sign, and I think it says ER, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's take a look, shall we?
Oh, the next one.
And it's
that's what the building looked like when we bought it. And there's a story behind that too, which I think is very interesting.
And that is
that just says the Playhouse.
That's the current home of the acting company. That's just amazing.
Yes. Would you like to hear the background of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why you're here, my friend. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, we excuse me. We realized that we weren't going to raise the millions of dollars that were necessary to build a theater that would seat 300 people. But we also didn't like having to travel different places. I mean, we did things at in the multi-purpose room, at the women's club, at the Refuge. I mean, we did shows all over the place.
I heard this about somebody mentioned the Refuge having been home to the group for a while.
Right. And again, they're also, you and I will have to, you know, I have to tell you some stories about that. But anyway, so we kept looking for, you know, for a place. And then this building actually started out as a grocery store. And I went to Yuba City High School. And after school, I used to go there and get a Coke and a candy bar or whatever.
Wow.
And then when that shut down, a course that was taught in cooking,
like a senior food
school class? Whatever. Anyway, there was a culinary class,
right?
And they used this as a restaurant. They called it the Honker Hilton. And then after that class moved out to Yuba College, then a church took it over as a deli, and then they quit. Photography studio took it over, and that went belly up. And then we wanted to lease the place, and somebody else, you know, every time we tried to lease it, somebody was a step ahead of us. Well, anyway, we finally got our toe in the door. Right next to the theater, as you're looking at the building there to the left, there's a little cottage. There's really a nice little house, and to the left of that is a building that looks like a mobile home. And this fellow owned that. He owned that building, he owned the cottage, and he owned this. So we took a lease out on this, and we had a real estate broker on our board. And probably about 2 months after we leased this, he walked into a board meeting and he said, "We're buying the building. We just have to sign the papers." So anyway, we bought it. He carried the paper, and within a few years, we paid for the building. And then right after that, Foster, McManus, and some others got together, got a loan for, I think it was $250,000 or $300,000 to renovate it to where it looks like it does. Well, actually, almost the way it looks right now. And so, and we put probably another $100,000 into it at various times. So, you know, when you walk into that theater, you're looking at about $350,000.
Oh, I hear you. We own our theater in Marysville, and we bought it back in the mid '90s. And those are the kind of numbers we're talking about. It's expensive to build or remodel theaters. What was the time frame, Curt? Was this the 80s, late 70s?
Well, Theater 86 is the way it started because we started in 1983, and I had this fantasy that within 3 years we'd have enough money to build a theater. So it's called Theater 86. When we bought this building, Pat Hill was the president, and we decided to change the name from Theater 86 because we're always having to explain why it was called Theater 86. And we changed the name to the acting company.
Oh, really? Okay. Very early on. Okay.
Well, yes, that was, I think we got the building. It was either 92 or 94. I can't remember.
Wow. What else was going on in the community? Again, I'm still kind of a new kid in town. I've been here about 11 years now.
Okay.
Was there any other theater scene or what was happening outside of the schools?
Oh, okay. Well, there was a theater called community theater called the Sutter Buttes Regional Theater, or SBRT.
Okay.
And the fellow who had that, he was pretty much it. I mean, he ran it, and although other people were involved, they didn't have any positions that would keep things going. So anyway, he moved to Sacramento. That folded, and that was over in Marysville. And then it was shortly thereafter that we did Carousel, and that, well, okay. I already explained what happened after that. So there was nothing in the form of way of community theater. There was nothing until we started our
really
theater,
our beloved community theater at the acting company. Was that other theater group though? Was that the one the Reed family was involved in?
Yes.
Well, interesting. Quick side story. It was funny because a few years ago somebody said, "Well, you have any relation to the Reeds here in town?" And they spell their last name. I'm R-E-A-D. They spell their name R-E-A-D-E. I'm sitting down in Senator Nielsen's office a couple of years ago, and his chief of staff comes out and says, "Hi, I'm David Reed." And I said, "Well, that's funny. I'm David Reed too." I said, "Are you the theater guy from Yuba Sutter?" And he goes, "Yeah." So his family, I guess, or whatever. He went on, got into the politics thing, and was working for Senator Nielsen. So
he was an interesting character. He always wore an ascot. You know, he was a theater guy. And actually, I'm sure he didn't make a good living at it, but it was professional theater, and he took an income from it.
Oh, wow. Boy, that must be nice.
Well,
like all of you at the acting company were doing, right?
Well, he wound up doing an awful lot. He did an awful lot of shows that didn't have any royalties.
Oh, nice. That makes a difference.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. Wow. Well, that's amazing. All right. So you really are the founders of the theater scene here in town. What about you personally? What sparked your interest in theater, and ultimately you're interested in getting into acting and directing and everything else you did, let alone founding a theater company?
Yeah, well, I have absolutely no idea. You know, someone always says, when I ask actors, they'll say, "Oh, was this one teacher or whatever?" But I know I came from a family of singers, not actors, but singers. And when I first moved to California in 1959, I was in the 7th grade, and I joined the choir, a cappella choir. Yep. Then when I went to Yuba City High School, I was in the a cappella choir there. And then when I was a junior, I went away to school my sophomore year, and I needed to pick up, when I came back, and I had to pick up some units. And so I took a summer school drama class.
Oh, wow.
Got me more involved. And then I did the senior play, went off to Davis, did nothing in that way. At Davis, I was majoring in English and having to work to put myself through school.
Sure.
When I came back to Yuba City, I was teaching for 6 years at Gray Avenue. And I taught a drama class there, and actually, interesting, there was no air conditioning. We wanted air conditioning in the faculty lounge. And so I wrote 2 or 3 plays, comedies that, in which the faculty performed.
Oh, fun.
And so we would charge whatever it was at that time, 50 cents or $1 or something. Okay. And so the kids and their parents would come, and eventually we raised the $500 to put an air conditioner into the faculty lounge.
What a great fundraiser. Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. It's funny you mentioned the teacher thing. And again, this is not about me, but I'm here because of my high school drama and Shakespeare teacher. And that was my initial exposure. And it was, it's been a great ride through my entire
Actually, I don't know how, excuse me, sorry for interrupting, but I can't believe I forgot this. But I actually took Drama 1 and Drama 2 at Yuba City High School. So there you go.
Okay. Okay. Good for you. See, it leads to, all kinds of opportunities. I wound up being and I have a BS in communications. So that plus my theater background led to me, a great career in sales and marketing. So like we talked before about the BS factor.
Right. And you do an amazing job. You really do.
Well,
and I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it.
You're very kind. You're very kind. And so I know I'm talking to the master. So, all right. So you just kind of fell into it. And so you mentioned your day job. You were an English teacher at Yuba City High eventually, or?
Yes. I was at Gray Avenue for 6 years. And then I was at Yuba City High School for, I guess it would be then 31 years.
Wow. No kidding. Retired out of there.
I put in 37 years, then retired.
Gee. What a great career. I had some experience with the long-term substitute teaching in special ed English in some high schools. And God love you.
You're a
All,
saint. You're a
all
saint.
due respect. It's like, it was an incredible experience. I'm so glad I got to do it, but wow. And they were a pretty good bunch of kids, all things considered. They got to watch a lot, learn a little bit about Shakespeare and a few other things of my passions, but we worked it into the curriculum, and they were relatively tolerant. So Alex mentioned that you all had worked together back in the day on a production of Jesus Christ Superstar. Was that at the acting company?
Yeah. Oh, that was amazing. We put on 3 performances actually at the acting company. There were so many people when we decided to do that as a fundraiser. People came out of the walls. I didn't realize how many people just loved that show.
Yep.
So we even had people who were professional musicians.
Wow.
Who came on who are willing to do it for free. We had a full orchestra on stage at the acting company. You know how small that stage is.
Yeah, sure.
And we really had to squeeze all the actors and the chorus onto the stage. So it was that stage was fully packed.
Oh, how fun! And it was I want to say readers theater. What do you call that style? Where
right. Well, if it weren't musicals, then I guess you'd say it's readers theater. But anyway, it was done without any props or a set. But we are fortunate in that we actually had a couple of professional actors come in to play the 2 leads, to play Judas and to play Jesus. And one of them actually is Foster Campbell's son.
Oh, Michael R.J. Campbell.
He went off to L.A. and New York and so on, and he's been a success in the theater. And so he was living in Sacramento at the time, I think working with what is the theater company there?
Sacramento Theater Company. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Sacramento Theater Company. And because he was part of SAG, then we had to pay him, but there's an exception. We only had to pay him like $50 or something.
Oh,
and this other fellow came, and they were just marvelous. I expected them just to sort of stand there and sing, but we had the chorus in 2 different columns, 2 different lines, and he was in costume, and so he would walk up and down there and touch them as Jesus would and bless them and sing and so on. And so they did. Oh, so I mean, the show was just amazing. Just amazing.
Michael was gone from here by the time I got here, but another quick digression. I've been to a lot of shows at Sacramento Theater Company, and I re-met an old friend of mine from LA who's a Bay Area actor, lifetime equity member, and I'm watching this show, and he's on stage doing Cinderella with Michael R.J. Campbell.
Oh, and that's what it is.
Michael comes out, doing his total drag kind of Dame Edna, oh darling, and so I got to meet him, and I saw him in a couple of other shows before he moved back to New York. But my friend Gary Martinez had worked with him on a number of shows. So,
by the way, he didn't say that's Screen Actors Guild. I can't remember what it is for
equity, Actors Equity.
Okay, so yeah, he belonged to Actors Equity, and thank you for not correcting me.
No, God, no. He might be SAG too. Hell, what do I know? I'm just the guy on this side of the camera here. No, a fabulous actor, and just was so pleased to be able to meet him and see him in a couple of shows before he headed off.
Great guy.
Seek his fame and fortune. Any particular influences on your work in the theater that, you really kind of inspired you? You just kind of fell into it, but anybody that's uber famous, or even somebody here locally that just really got your juices flowing for theater?
Well, I don't think so. But then remember, after I suddenly remembered that I took drama at Yuba City High School, so there might have been someone who, fortunately, some people are watching this, but fortunately, there aren't millions of people watching this. Or somebody out there would be saying, "Well, wait a minute, I influenced you." Okay,
right. Well, we may be hearing that later on the reruns for the show.
Right.
What about it? What about when you were teaching? This intrigued me when I was working with a curriculum when I was long-term subbing in English. Do they do much, or do you know these days, as far as Shakespeare or theater in general, as far as high school English curriculum?
Well, yes, there's Shakespeare's in the curriculum, but
they still do the Romeo and Juliet.
And
Macbeth or whatever.
Yeah, and just as a side note, I always thought it was amusing that they taught Romeo and Juliet, not at Yuba City High School. It was sophomores, but all over the country, they teach Romeo and Juliet to freshmen, and yet,
interesting.
Of all the plays of Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet actually is the most, I don't want to use the word tittling, vulgar, whatever.
It's a little edgy.
But because it's Shakespeare,
right,
okay, and everything has to be explained to the students,
right.
What the instructors would do is just skip over, all the things that, of respect.
You mean all the hot parts? Yeah.
Right. They would skip over all those parts, because I'd ask them, I said, well, how can we teach that? What do you do when he says this or when they say that? And said, we just skip over it and they don't know what they're saying.
That's right. Well, what were they? Romeo and Juliet? Were they like 13 and 14 or something crazy?
I think Juliet was about 13. I'm not sure how old.
Very young. Real cradle robber. Of course, I showed my students the Baz Luhrmann version. You ever seen that one? Romeo plus Juliet. If you're a
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, but Baz Luhrmann, my gosh,
that got their attention.
And he was amazing. Yeah, what a master. Yes.
Right. There's Leonardo DiCaprio and all these great actors, and well done,
but I still prefer the one they did back in the '60s.
Yeah, Leonard Whiting and Olivia Hussey, directed by Frank Zeffirelli. Right. Anyway.
Oh, God, I love that. I showed it I guess there were a couple times. Well, no, not a couple times. I taught sophomores. Yeah. Every year I would show them that film. Yeah,
it's a beauty. That's the one I certainly experienced when I was in high school. So, so what do you consider your greatest accomplishment as a theater entrepreneur, if you will?
Well, putting the theater together. And I always tell people, because they'll give me the pats on the back. I've won a number of awards for shows that I've directed. And
have the Ellies been around a long time? I mean, I'm again fairly new here.
Quite a long time. But anyway, what I will tell people, and I truly mean this, I'm not being modest, say, I'm a pretty good singer, I'm a pretty good actor, and so on and so forth, and a decent director. But the reason my shows are such a success is that I get the best people and I delegate.
No.
So when I have a vision of what I want something to look like, I say, well, I kind of like to do this or do that. And I'll say, well, what about this? And I'll say yes or no. Usually I say yes because they're just great people. I mean,
yeah.
So
go with it.
Like Betsy Johnson has been the producer for almost every show that I've done. And I tell them, after we start out, say, if you have any questions about anything, you ask Betsy because she's the boss. And then I repeat that and say, no, I am not just being nice. Good. That actually is the truth. She's the boss. I will block everything. But as far as scheduling, whatever, costumes or rehearsals, or it really doesn't matter. Once we get things rolling, you ask her.
Well, that's a special gift too, with all due respect. I mean, being able to do that delegating. You're not some monomaniacal Ahab of the theater trying to, right?
But anyway, that's my skill. If you ask me, I won't be modest about it. If you ask me, what do you think is your greatest strength? It's being able to talk good people into, like talking people out of their money to build a theater,
right.
and talking people into.
We'll talk later.
Yes. Okay.
Well, that's great, and you all are, I know, very proud, and to have that be your legacy, one of them at least, to have started something way back when, and for it to be flourishing. Well, not this month, but as soon as things get back to normal, and I mean, it's just been.
My goal was, as I have two daughters, and my wife, and my goal was to, have them eventually, to nurture them so that eventually they get to the point that they could be independent beyond their own. And so I used to tell people in the theater, on the board and such, that was my goal, is to get it started and have someone else take over so that you don't need me anymore. And unfortunately, for 30 years or whatever, that wasn't the case. I tried to back away for a while and came back. But I think that we're finally at the point that if I said bye-bye, I'm going to go move to Hawaii, the theater would continue and be very successful.
Well, you on the board currently?
Yes, I am.
You're still on the board. Okay. I was on a board meeting a couple months ago just talking about some grant opportunities we have coming up and wanted to make them aware. So they graciously allowed me to be part of the board meeting. And I couldn't remember if you were still
about, I don't know, what is a year or two ago, we got Lisa Bushman on board.
Sure.
And she knows how to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've been working with her on, when you're talking about working with somebody on grants and making
We've
them
talked,
work.
yeah.
I imagine you've been working with Lisa.
Absolutely. That's part of our job, I think, is to try to support to the best of our ability all of our sister arts organizations.
Absolutely.
I keep telling people that's what we do. Yeah, we've got our theater. We like to do some certain things. We've got our gallery, but more importantly, we like to be this umbrella, just like in the background there, to help support all the arts groups.
Well, Steve, actually, about the time that we started as Theater 86, that was when the Arts Council in California started up.
That's right. State.
And for whatever reason, I don't remember the reason, they decided because of the size of the counties that it wouldn't just be the Sutter County Arts Council or Yuba County, but that they would bring them together. And so I was also, part of that process.
Were you? Okay. Were you on the board at YubaSutterArts or?
To be honest with you, I can't remember, but
you were certainly.
People who were on that board were also on our board.
Okay, good synergy, yeah.
Right, but back then, the people who were involved with the Yuba Sutter Arts Council were, their idea of the arts was something you hang on the wall.
That's what I've heard. You've just confirmed what I've heard from several other folks that were involved very early on. They didn't have this holistic view of performing arts and everything else, that goes along with art.
So I just moved away because they really weren't interested in publicizing us, with becoming involved, being a part of the acting company. And I have to say, to be honest, that's the way it's been over the years. And they put things in the newsletters that they sent out, but I don't know how much their heart was really in it. And it wasn't until you took over that I think that the Sutter Arts Council has actually expanded to the point where it really nurtures and tries to support all the arts.
Well, I think we've come into our own. I've had some great mentors. Of course, Abby Cecina. None of this would be possible without her and her.
Oh, absolutely.
So, we're a team. We've got Shantae and Alex behind the scenes helping run this show today. But it's just been a great joy. I've practiced all my life in business for this job. I got the greatest job of my life. Doesn't pay a whole lot, but I'm fortunate to be able to do the work. So,
now Abby might contradict me, but actually, Alex got involved with the acting company, and that's when Abby, because her son was involved,
of course,
became involved, and then she moved over to the Yuba Sutter Arts Council.
That's right, the stage moms, you know how they are. But
right.
we're very proud of our history, and you're right. We started 81 is what I show as our year of incorporation, and that was just a couple of years after Jerry Brown, and in his first term in office, started the California Arts Council, of which we are the local 2-county affiliate. And of course, as you know, we're the only of the 58 counties, 54 have Arts Council representation. And we're the only 2-county agency, which you kind of go, okay, that's nice. Everything here is Yuba Sutter, but don't tell anybody. We get double dipping on the annual funding, so. Which
is nice. Well, as I said, I moved from Wisconsin in 1959. Went to Robbins Elementary School in Sutter Basin, and then went to Yuba City High School. Yeah. So, and at my age, I've already forgotten what the point was that I was going to make. I apologize. It'll probably come to me in a few minutes.
We'll circle back around. So you mentioned moving from, if you remember it, just to interrupt, but you mentioned moving. As you know, you introduced me to your brother, David, who lives down in Modesto and is part of the Stanislaus Arts Council, which they have just received there. It's called the State Local Partnership accreditation, which makes them now the official Arts Council for Stanislaus County. And we've had some great conversations, but you have to answer one very important question for me.
What's that?
Is it Schroeder or Schroeder?
Well,
because he's David Schroeder.
Right. Well, coming from Wisconsin, back then, you were either, if you lived in Wisconsin, you were either Polish or German.
Okay.
And in Germany, well, okay, quick. I hope I can make this a quick story.
That's all right. Tell us about the umlaut.
Yeah. So in Wisconsin, you pronounced it Schroeder. Moved to California, and it's ridiculous. If you wanted to order a pizza, would say, okay, who's the pizza for? And you say, well, it's for Curt Schroeder, Schroeder. You have to immediately spell it. And that's what my brother continued to do, and my other brother and my sister. And I thought, well, this is absurd. I mean, I'm just going to say Schroeder and have done with it. So then I went to Davis, and I had a double major, English and German.
Oh, you did.
I had a professor who was a woman from Germany.
Oh.
And she was pronouncing my name, and then I walked up to her after class, and I'm so embarrassed to even tell this story. I was telling her, "Oh, you don't have to pronounce it the way I understand it. You know, it's really Schroeder. We know that." And she looked at me and said, "No, it's pronounced something like Schroeder."
Schroeder. Oh yeah, okay.
It's between an O and an E.
Yeah.
Okay, but because it's one of those things that is almost impossible for someone who speaks English to pronounce correctly, then you either turned it into Schroeder or Schroeder, even though it's in between. So there you go. And so that's why it's Schroeder.
Wonderful. So what? All right. Now that we got that important question.
Oh yeah, that was important. Yes.
No, it was incredibly important. I told David I'd be asking you, so now we've heard it from both sides of the family.
Okay.
So you worked as an actor and obviously as a director and so much more, theater founder. What's your favorite show, or talk about some other shows that you did that you were involved with from either side of the stage that you just love or have fond memories of?
Yeah, well, my favorite show was Carousel, because that was something that it's a show. Well, there are two shows actually. Carousel was one that I'd always wanted to do, and so some large shows had been done. Teachers from the high school had done the work, but they opened it up to the community, and we did a number of shows there, like Fiddler on the Roof and such. And I just happened to be mentioning to some people who'd done the directing and such in the past, who were in my department, that, my gosh, I've always wanted to do Carousel. So they decided, okay, we'll do Carousel, and you can play the lead.
Oh.
I was able to do that, and I just,
wow.
It's a really depressing show. In fact, some of the people who were in it said, that's an awful show. Why are we doing this? But they wanted to be, in a show. And then the other one that I really wanted to do was Paint Your Wagon.
Oh, fun.
So Pat Hill decided to do that for me. But she loved the show as well. And we put the show on over at the Marysville Auditorium when they still allow people into the building.
The big one right there on the campus. I was in there for a couple of shows before they shut it down. The MCAA charter school was doing shows there. Oh my gosh, what a magnificent hall. Oh.
And then
shows there too. Oh.
Yeah, and as far as and they, for a while, they did a community thing. What is it? Forget it. And I'll come back to that later. Chamber. They did something called the Chamber Follies. It was a fun. Okay. And so the Chamber of Commerce would hire some has-been director from Southern California to come up and Chamber Follies, and I was in the Chamber Follies as well. I was as the MC. We did that. But anyway, as far as directing is concerned, one of the best times I had, not perhaps the best time, was just a few years ago. I directed a show called Forever Plaid.
Oh, was that you? I don't know why I spaced on that. I love that.
Years before that, my wife and I were in Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
A professional theater that is quite well known. And we were looking for something to do, walking down the street. We walked past the theater, and they were doing this show called Forever Plaid, and it sounded interesting. So I went to see it, just loved it. And so maybe it was like 10 years later, and after unsuccessfully trying to talk the board into letting me do it, they said, okay, well, you can do it. Great so show. Forever Plaid, and we went, it was nominated for 6 Ellys, something like that. And we swept it. We won every single Ellie.
Wow.
People loved it. We actually added performances, and at every performance we had a standing ovation, and people asked for encores. So we had so much fun with that show.
With our friend Jim Achilles, now living up in Oregon.
Yeah, he was in it, and he also was the music director. And I remember we needed a tenor. There are 4 people in the show. had a tenor, then lost a tenor. And I was thinking, what am I going to do now? So one evening I get a phone call from this fellow. It was really low key. And he said, I hear you might need a tenor for your show. Well, when I thought I had a tenor, we dropped everything. Like we dropped all our advertising for anyone. So I'm wondering, well, where did you hear this? And he said, well, I was at the SARTA website, which we hadn't taken down, and we thought that maybe you needed a tenor. Well, the guy was absolutely amazing. In fact, his wife, he did some other things with us. In fact, his wife is still involved with the theater. She's taught some acting classes. She has directed some shows. Cassie
Feifeld, of course. Yeah, I know her well. She does things that
and she and her husband both were in some of the fundraisers I did.
Oh, fun. Wow. Yeah, great stuff. So a lot of the shows you've described are just classics of the American musical theater. What about straight plays, non-musical? I mean, I know it's what will the community come out for and support? So I totally get that. You know, you gotta sell tickets. Any thoughts on other shows, non-musicals?
Oh, we've well, not just the ones that I've been involved with. We've done some great shows, and unfortunately, you just don't know who's going to show up and who isn't. And so, we'll do something that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And we won't get a lot of people who will, who show up.
But this is Chekhov. This is good for you. Got to come see the Seagull, right?
Well, I don't know about Chekhov.
Yeah, well,
sorry,
David Wheeler, right? He wanted
right. My apologies to David Wheeler, but yeah. But
well,
anyway.
I'm still waiting for the O'Neill, the Wilderness,
Or let's see, what's the other one? Morning Becomes Electra, and some of these. Yeah. One of them is so long that they actually take a dinner break.
Yeah, and, right. Hey, Long Day's Journey into Night. But I've never seen Wilderness, which is billed as his one comedy. So we'll have to wait.
My wife and a friend flew back to New York City to see Long Day's Journey into Night.
Wow.
Because there are, I think, 2 or 3, Oscar-winning actors who were in it. And she came back and she would say, "Oh my God, that was long, but it was marvelously acted." So,
to see, some of your favorite film actors who still have the chops to do live theater. Right. I saw Kevin Spacey a couple of years ago in San Francisco before the fall.
But once in a while we do have.
He did Richard III.
Oh, okay.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, once in a while we do have shows that are straight plays that will sell out. For example, when we did 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest with you, because it's, a bit of, I don't want to call it a downer, but because it's so serious and kind of, I was thinking, how many people in our community are even, familiar with it? And then the people who are familiar, would they show up to see it? We sold out almost every performance.
Oh, no kidding. That's amazing. Good for you. Yeah, it's a conundrum. I totally get the business part of it, and you want to do some of this other stuff for the soul of the community, but you gotta fill those seats.
Is that photo on the screen? Oh, excuse me, that
the Art Town program is up.
Is that up?
Yeah.
Okay, because the first show that we did as an acting company was You Can't Take It With You, and that's the first show that we did in our theater, Our Town. Right. There you go. That's the poster for the show that we did in the multi-purpose room, and then the other is from the program for the show that we did, the first show that we did at the acting company. Excuse me, at the theater, and I directed it.
Wow.
And the reason we did Our Town was because it didn't require a set. We borrowed chairs from Albury Memorial Chapel.
Oh, okay.
Turn them, and so it's funny. People would go and sit there in these folding chairs on the back would say Albury Funeral Home. And we also the theater had a problem with a leaky pipe years ago, and so they turned off the water, and then covered the floor with carpeting. But when we took up the carpeting, we saw that the concrete floor was cracked, so we had to jackhammer it up and re-pour the concrete. Well, at that time, a lot of the concrete was sitting on the floor in the building, and we'd cover it with canvas and then put the seats off to the side for the show.
Oh my gosh.
And there you go. That was on the front page of the entertainment section of the Appeal Democrat.
Nice.
Yeah, that was from from our town. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very good. You still have those clippings. Wow.
Oh, and more.
And more. Good. Keep those archives.
Uh-huh.
You talked a little bit before we went live about the whole idea of the legacy of the acting company and the young performers that came through the Magic Theater program, and some of whom have come back, and just talk about that and your pride of how that's played out.
Well, it wasn't something I anticipated that I really thought about when we started actually, a company of our own. But there are a lot of people on our board and directors and such who were really interested in children and children's theater. So we had acting classes for young people, and we had shows with young people in them. And so what would happen is that then the parents would come, drop the kids off, stick around, and then they would become involved.
Right.
Whatever, working the front desk, selling candy, or doing costumes in the back. They're being wranglers.
Great volunteers. Yeah.
They'll become involved, and sometimes not just working behind the scene, but become actors and actresses and such, or they'd work in the light booth and so on and so forth. So as the kids grew older, they would then be, instead of doing children's theater, they'd be doing our main stage shows. They would then, after they graduated from high school, go off to college, and some of them would even return. And as a kind of a side issue, it's really amazing. When we first started as a theater, if we did 6 shows during the year, we would have 1 show that was really good, would have 2 or 3 that were okay, and would have a couple of them that frankly were just awful. But as our name began to get out into the community, that we found out that there really were some marvelous singers and actors out there. They just didn't come to our theater. Well, we're now to the point that if we do 6 shows, all 6 are excellent. And if you look in the program, you find out that we have people who have bachelor's and master's degrees in costuming and theater and lighting and sound and so on and so forth. It's just, one example is Stephanie McLean Bollinger, who, by the way, was a student of mine at Yuba City High School.
Was she? Oh, fun.
Yeah, she was a professional actress for years back in New York. And I think it was because her mom took ill or something that she moved back to city, and I saw her in a show, and I didn't think it was the last name was Bollinger, and I didn't think this was my ex-student. It turned out that it was. So anyway, we get some people who have actually done professional theater have returned.
Well, it's so funny you mentioned her. The first time I saw her, she was in a production called Queen Lear on the back steps of the Tea Garden House.
Oh, really?
And,
okay.
I've met her. I don't know her well, but I've met her a few times over the years. But there I was at the Tea Garden House. Again, I'm a Shakespeare guy. I like this. Totally works,
Right. So, by the way, speaking of people coming back to the community, you probably heard about the bus accident.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right. They lost 26 students in the choir lost their lives. They were going down to Martinez. Well, anyway, there were twins. Last name was Randolph. So the Randolph twins, and one of them was killed in the accident, and the other one survived. He returned to the community, and he played the stage manager, which is the lead in our town.
Oh, of course. Oh, what a great story. Jay, what about so that life cycle you've seen with students coming back and being involved in the theater? What about other local theater opportunities for young people? Do you keep up with Marysville Charter Academy or Faith Christian? Of course, you all have Magic Theater. Any thoughts on the state of youth theater education in the community, high schools?
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you asked that question, because while we are the area's only community theater, in Sutter, Yuba County, Colusa, so on and so forth, there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of great teachers in our area. I hope he's not listening, because I really apologize for getting forgetting his name. But there was a gentleman at Faith Christian who was there for years, who really knew his stuff. I mean,
Demerit.
Paul Demerit, that's right. I mean,
And his son, of course, is now at Marysville Charter Academy for the Arts.
Yeah. So anyway, no, he was the drama instructor at Faith Christian.
Yeah.
So I mean, and he knew everything about theater. You know, he could do the lights, the sound. I mean, stuff that I don't know how to do, that I depend on other people to do. And there were kids who came out of his programs that were absolutely marvelous. And I think that there were kids students who would have never thought of going to Faith Christian if he weren't there, because, you know, they went there specifically for Paul. And then you had the Marysville
Charter Academy for the Arts. Yeah.
There you go. They do a great job over there. I can't remember who's the
Wendy Marks just retired, but Matt Demerit, Paul's son, has just taken over as the theater head at MCAA. So,
right. Anyway, Wendy Marks did an absolutely great job there. We actually got a lot of her students.
Really?
They would come over and they would be in the shows that we did. In fact, a while back, you were asking what are some of your favorite shows. Well, I directed Bye Bye Birdie.
Oh, love it.
And, you know, I was asking for young teens, you know, kids who'd be like 15 years old, sophomores in high school, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Well, turns out afterwards that I had all these kids who were from the Charter Academy and such, who were like 11, 12 years old, which I didn't know at the time. But if they hadn't shown up, we wouldn't have had a whole cast. Wow. But at any rate, we've had. I think she's been very gracious about that. I think it's even encouraged kids who are her students to come over and be in our shows. And I've always been impressed by the students that she sent over. So you've got the Faith Christian, you have the Marysville Arts Academy. Those are two that I can think of that have been just great and continue to be great.
Great programs. And Wendy's the real deal. I first met her up at the Fellowship when she was directing. I think they were doing Richard II.
Well, I didn't know she was Fellowship.
Yeah, she did a bunch of shows up there and just magnificent. So it was fun to get to meet her then later and learn out more about her work at MCAA. Uh-huh. And we look forward to working and collaborating with Matt Demerit now. So that's
great that his son is.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Yeah.
He had a great mentor, so he must be good.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. What about the Yuba College Theater? Have you met James Gilbreth, the new professor of theater there?
No, I haven't met him. I remember actually before Davis, I went to Yuba College and I was taking some classes there, and then Dave. Oh gosh, no. Oh gosh.
All right, it's not a quiz.
I think his last name was Butler.
Okay.
Just back in the 50s, he got some money to build a theater out there, and it was state of the art. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere in the country, and I mean that literally, any place in the country that was had a theater that was more technologically advanced as the one there at Yuba College. And he would do musicals, a couple of musicals every year, and every single one of his shows would sell out. And if you didn't get tickets like a month ahead of time, you didn't get to see the shows. I was in one of his shows, and my wife was his assistant. She's never been involved in theater, but because I was in it, gave her something to do, and so she helped out. But then after he retired, then Dave Wheeler took over. Okay. Did some musicals, and they were quite successful. So, and in fact,
we love our musicals, right?
What's that now?
We love our musical theater.
Oh, well. Yes, when we do musicals, you can always depend on they're selling out, but they're a lot more expensive to put on also. And it's right now we're a 74-seat theater. We will do maybe 18 performances of a show, and yet they'll charge us now over $6,000 for rights.
Is that what it is for the big shows? I've never bought rights for the big ones.
Yes, when it started out, it was years ago. It was like maybe $2,500, but now it's about $6,000. Wow. We charge $20 for a ticket. Yeah, and the tickets don't.
I was going to say, how many tickets do you have to sell to break even? Those are the kind of numbers I like. A lot.
Even if you sell out, you don't. I mean, you might actually make some money on the show itself. We might make, who knows, $8,000-$10,000 on the show.
Yeah.
However, we have a we have all sorts of expenses. We have to replace things. We have the PG&E bill. We got the garbage. We've got the phones. We're paying somebody who works at the front desk, and so on and so forth. So we figure, in addition to everything else we do, even if we include grants, and such, we come up about $10,000-$12,000 short every year, and so that's why we do a fundraiser in order to come up with that extra $10,000
to get you up to break even. Yeah, boy.
That's right. But we've never really been broke, fortunately.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well,
but sometimes there was a time for a few years when our treasurer actually had to decide what bill we're going to pay that month.
Wow. Lean times. Well, good for you for hanging in there and keeping the magic alive. James, I came here just after the last remodel of the Yuba College Theater 10, 11 years ago. And so James, since David Wheeler retired, I think is the first full-time theater staff there, aside from Joseph Stottman, who does all the technical. And James we had him on another show about 2 weeks ago, or I had him on this show 2 weeks ago, and he does some very interesting material out there, but he can get by. It's educational theater. He doesn't have to. I mean, it's 320 seats. That's a lot of seats.
Right, but they could have 2 people show up, but the bills are still paid. So.
Yeah, that's right. So they're subsidized, but he does it, and the kids love it. They're getting a great experience and doing some very different kinds of things, and hopefully some of that synergy is occurring too, where some of those students are coming over and auditioning for acting company shows under normal circumstances. And I think there is, a great deal of that anyway.
Yeah, but their circumstances are the same as ours in that when they do the straight shows, you don't get a big turnout. You do the musicals, and then a lot of people turn out. I remember out at Yuba College, they did the show. I can't remember, it was the Wyoming. What's the name of that show?
The Laramie Project.
Yeah, the Laramie. That's it. The Laramie Project.
Yeah, the Matthew Shepard story.
Really dark, and they did the show on the stage, and the audience was seated on the stage. We didn't sit in the auditorium.
Well, interesting.
So, there's not, there isn't a lot of interest in straight plays. I think the reason that they sell out on Broadway is that they have a, $100-200 million, audience.
Right.
People come from all the world to go on Broadway.
Built-in clientele of,
major. And even then, a lot of times they will bring in a well-known actor or actress as a draw in order to do the show.
That's all we need to do then, Curt. Come on, let's let's fly someone in from LA or New York, and
absolutely, yes,
make them an artist in residence, and they'll go to work for you. It's a fascinating set of circumstances. But just one quick side note on Laramie Project, we were scheduled to do it in our theater this fall under the direction of one of your, successor English teachers. I don't know if you've met. I want to forget his name now. I've been thinking about it the whole show. Paul Loomis, who we've gotten to know at Yuba City High School. He's the speech team coordinator and English teacher, and he's been a big supporter of Poetry Out Loud. But he came to us last year and said, "Hey, I really want to do. I'd like to do the Laramie Project." And we said, "Okay, great." We went ahead and bought the rights. It was only $480, which we're still waiting for the refund on. But anyway, of course, we had to cancel, but we're hoping to do that again. I love the idea that an English teacher from one of the major high schools reached out, and he's, like I said, been a great partner of some other projects. So, but yeah, I've never seen an actual production of it. So interesting they did it at Yuba College. I didn't know that.
Right. I mean, talk about a show that might not have a broad interest.
Well, theater for social change or theater about social issues. I mean, I'm all in. I mean, I love musical theater too, but I got a high threshold of pain for some of that. So, all right.
If it does work out and he does it in the future, every show might be sold out. You just never know. With musicals, you have more of an idea, but straight plays, no idea. You'll do a show that is, it's been around for years that you think people will flock to, considering their demographics. It might be a show that is, 40 years old, and our demographic, might be, 60-year-old, and they won't show up. And you do another show that you figure no one will come.
It touches a nerve. So, Well, before we wrap up here, I told you the hour would go very quickly. With a few minutes we have remaining, I want to ask you a few questions, and this is in honor of our good friend James Lipton, who, as you know, ran the Actors Studio in New York for many years. And at the end of each interview, he asked his guests the following 10 questions. You ready? What is your...
I don't know how quick I am, but go ahead.
All right. That's all right. There's no right or wrong answer. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word?
What's your favorite
word? Mention it.
All right. Spell it.
I mean, but I do have, I know people who have favorite words. And usually, this isn't my favorite word, but all too often, I know people whose favorite word is magical.
Ah, I like it.
But that's not mine.
We'll throw it in for now as a placeholder. If you think of something else. But what's your least favorite word?
Oh my gosh. Why are you asking me this?
Maybe in advance, Curt. You didn't read your script.
Oh, you gave me this in advance. Well, I guess I didn't.
That's all right. That's all right. No, this is good. I appreciate the good illusion of the first time, since it is. What's your least favorite word? Any thoughts on that one? And feel free to pass. If it's too tough, we'll move on.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a word, but least favorite thing is people who surrender, who give up, who aren't willing to stick, to things. You think of the word, and that's an idea.
Well, surrender. That's a good. Just plug it in.
Yeah.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh well, theater, of course, is excuse me, is a.
What took you so long? I was waiting.
What's that?
I said, what took you so long? I was waiting.
I had to clear my throat. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh gosh, intolerance. That's the first one that was easy to answer.
Yeah, that's all right. What is your favorite curse word? Is that the one you were thinking about earlier?
Yeah, well, it's probably a pretty common one for.
We've heard them all. We've heard them all.
Awful lot of people. But if it's okay to just
or spell it.
Either shit or fuck, which is, but that's not very imaginative. I mean, that's almost everyone's favorite word, right?
It's honest, Curt. It's honest. It's like you can go ahead and rattle off the seven words that George Carlin said you can't say on TV.
I thought there was George Carlin. Yeah, okay.
I won't repeat them here for our home audience.
What was it Lenny Bruce said?
I don't know that one.
Something.
He was edgy.
Oh, yes.
What sound or noise do you love?
Did you ever watch the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Lenny Bruce was on several of those episodes.
Yeah. So, what sound or noise do you love? Sound or noise?
I should have,
Come on, spontaneous. Don't you do improvs in the theater?
Well, I know, but there's no telling. Okay. Laughter.
Hey, perfect. Look at you. You're a rock star.
Okay.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, gosh. Screaming, because, sometimes I'm around young children. And when I started teaching, which is at Gray Avenue, I used to come home every day and have a couple shots of scotch because I couldn't stand the high pitched screaming.
Perfect. Totally valid. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt, or would you have liked to have attempted?
It's actually not acting, but I after my first year at Gray Avenue, I was ready to quit, and I was thinking of becoming an attorney.
Interesting. Oh, wow.
In fact, I took the LSAT and did quite well on it.
Wow. What profession would you not like to pursue?
Actually, a doctor, because they.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about it at one time. When you think about what they actually do and what they have to look at and touch,
it's a special gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
And last but not least, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, I would like him to say that that I was a person who was kind, compassionate, and tried to show people the best of myself and bring out the best in them.
Oh, beautiful. Curt Schroeder, thank you very much. It's been a lightning 1 hour. I just can't believe how the time flies by. We really appreciate all you've done in the community for arts and culture and your long career with the theater. And I hope you're not done yet. There might be another role or directing opportunities. So,
well, everything you said back at you.
All right. Well, we're not going anywhere until we have a succession plan like you did. So,
right. Well, you just started, so Oh, we're done.
Thank you to our technical support team behind the scenes, Alex Cecina and Shante Arroyo, and of course our producer, Abby Cecina. Next up, our special guest next week will be Steve Dilley, founder of Vet Arts. And he's based in the San Diego area and does special veterans art projects all over the state. He'll be coming up here in November for a pop-up art studio experience for veterans and active duty military. So that's next Tuesday, September 1st at 4 p.m. right back here at YubaSutterArts Facebook page. Until then, that's it for Artist Alchemy. See you next week. Thanks again, Curt.
Okay, thank you.